Welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created this show to help lawyers find happiness in life with a law degree. Together with my guests, we provide the knowledge, skills, insight, and inspiration you need to find your happy. Before we get to the show, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone in this community that has supported my Kickstarter campaign. Whether you've shared the link, bought a book, or just liked one of my posts, it means so much to me, and I'm thrilled to be able to share that we hit our initial funding goal within the first 36 hours. However, it's not the end of the campaign now, and we're continuing to try to raise money to help cover the additional costs associated with getting the books illustrated, edited, copyrights filed. You guys know all that stuff. So if you know any children or if you know anyone with children who may be interested in teaching them about the basics of money in a fun and age-appropriate way, then I hope you'll share my Kickstarter, which is a children's illustrated book about the basics of financial literacy. And you can find the link to the Kickstarter campaign and learn more about the project in my bio at the Happy Lawyer Project on Instagram. So now on to the show. I get so many requests from you lovely single ladies out there for advice about how to attract the love you deserve and gain the relationship you want in your life. And to be honest, Dave and I have been together for so long that I am not the best person to answer those questions. But don't fret, I've brought on an expert. Crystal Irom is a former attorney who now helps high-achieving, wealthy, and entrepreneurial women create success in their personal lives that matches what they've cultivated in their professional lives. And the thing I love so much about this conversation with Crystal is that she does not hold back. I mean, she shares some real hard truths, and whether you agree or disagree with her approach, I'm absolutely sure that you're going to walk away with some thought-provoking ideas that are definitely going to improve your relationships. So without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project, lawyers. I am super excited to have you guys back and super excited to interview today's guest because this is a topic that I get so many requests for. Welcome, Crystal Irom, to the show. Crystal, hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Yes, so this is a topic that I love to talk about because I love love. But for those out there who don't know who you are, could you just start with a brief description of who you are and what it is that you do?
Absolutely. I am a relationship coach. I work with single women who are really committed to calling in the love of their lives. So I help them get really clear on what they want and help them bring it into their lives and just create relationships in a much more intentional way.
That's amazing. And I want to dive into all of that. But before we do, you are also a lawyer?
I am a lawyer. Yes. Yeah, it feels like in another life, but I took the California bar several years back and I practiced there briefly.
Yeah.
But I found my purpose and passion really was in coaching.
So interesting. And what was your practice previously?
I did civil litigation. So I worked for, I did plaintiff side civil litigation. I worked for smaller firms. So I got my hand in a couple of different things, but yeah, mostly the civil litigation.
So it's fair to say that you understand lawyers and you kind of get their mindset. Because I think that as lawyers, sometimes correctly or incorrectly, there's a tendency to think that our lives are more complex or our problems are hard for the average man to understand or woman to understand.
Totally.
And so it's, I think that really will resonate with the audience. But I also kind of assumed that you would have done something that was like, and maybe this is my own bias, like family law. Do you know what I mean? Like that would seem like a more natural, like you did divorces and you realized that you didn't want to be on that side of the table or something.
Yeah. So I did handle a couple of family law cases. Like I said, I did work for a smaller firm. So it's funny that you mentioned that. I would say that one of the big turning points for me, where it was just like, this is so not the right thing for me, were involving family law cases. So that's funny that you pick up on that.
That's so interesting. So tell me, you said that you found your passion in relationship and love coaching. How did that come about?
So, like I said, I was practicing law, and I'll just tell you the story since this will be interesting for your listeners, I think. We had a consultation come into our office, and it was the sort of situation where sometimes I would take the consultation, even if I knew it was the sort of thing that we'd refer out. It's like just for me to have a little bit more information about the case. And so this particular issue was a guy who came in and he was interested in a divorce. He was looking for a divorce lawyer. And so we were having a really interesting conversation. And it was funny because one of the things that like I've picked up is just that like everybody takes divorce seriously, regardless of your background or your religious beliefs or anything else, like everyone takes divorce seriously. But not this guy. He came in and he had this very cavalier attitude about getting a divorce. And so at some point I must have given him a look where I'm just like, what are you even doing here? Because he just seemed very laid back about it. And he goes, what, you think I shouldn't be getting a divorce? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know you. I'm not going to tell you whether or not to get a divorce. Like, I gave him sort of a lawyerly response, which was like, let me just tell you how the process works and, we can go from there. So I sort of get him back on track and we continue the conversation. And then again, sort of towards, we'd been talking for maybe an hour or so, and he still hadn't said anything that made it really clear that he actually wanted a divorce. And so he's like, what, you really don't think I should get a divorce? And for some reason, I just felt like inspired to have the conversation with him. So instead of just like blowing him off, I was just like, do you think you should be getting a divorce? And we got into this whole conversation about like, what does it mean to get married to someone? And like, what does that commitment mean to you? And like, under what circumstances does one get divorced? And, what came out was basically that he felt like marriage is a commitment that you make for life, and you get divorced when you've tried everything and it's just not going to work. And I was like, well, that seems totally reasonable. Like, that makes perfect sense to me. Like, have you done that? Have you done everything you can to see if this could work? And he was like, not at all. I can think of things I could do today that would make it better.
Oh.
And I know. And so he was like, thank you for your time. I don't need a card. Like, I'm going to fix this. And he left.
I'm like going to cry. I'm so touched.
It was so crazy. And so I get out of this meeting, and obviously it wasn't a short amount of time. It was an hour and a half or whatever that I'm talking to this person. So one of the partners was like, oh, how'd that go? And I was just like, oh, it went great. Like, he doesn't need us. And he's like, what? And I sort of like told the partner the story, and like they weren't upset. He was just like, oh, that's like funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said something like, sounds like you should really be a marriage counselor, not a lawyer. And I was like, yeah, something like that. And, I tell that story. That wasn't like, oh, and then I walked out of that office and the next day I became a relationship coach. It was a much longer process than that. But I was getting these sort of hints. It's like, obviously a part of me knew that long-term being a lawyer was not what I was meant to be doing. But I had spent all this time in law school. I had spent all the time studying for the bar and started practicing, that I just didn't feel like I could stop right then. So it was a little bit of a path, but I did get a lot of things that sort of validated my own intuition, saying that this isn't the right thing for you. And then, in terms of becoming a coach, it was something I really just started on the side. I was like, oh, I'll do this for a while and sort of figure it out and see what comes of it. And that's basically what I did. So part of me, it was like, when I even heard about coaching, it's like I was a lawyer. Lawyers are elitist. And I think most lawyers can sort of accept that. And so it's just like, I don't even know if that's a real thing. Like, I don't know if I could do that. Like, coming from an area where you're so educated and, there's all of these requirements to actually practice, then to look at a different field like coaching, which is not a regulated industry, which anyone can just start doing. Like, it just didn't seem credible to me.
Yeah.
So
I feel like on the spectrum, like lawyer and doctor on one end, and like coach is just slightly ahead of fortune teller for people sometimes.
Totally. And it's like, now that I'm in it, I can see that it's not, because like, yeah, anyone can put up their name, but like a lot of the people who are actually going to make it, like there's got to be something backing it up. But for sure, it took me some time to get past my bias about like what a coach is. It just seemed sort of like nonsense. And I really, that was like a thing for me to get over, is like my own judgments about it, and just like embracing what I actually wanted. Like, how do I really want to be in service in the world?
Before we dive into like the nitty gritty of what you do, I would be really interested in thinking about that transition, because I know that there's so many people out there who have had those little signs and have this inclination that they're not doing the right thing, whether that's switching their practice or switching the way they practice law to completely switching professions. How did you overcome those thoughts and concerns about the validity of coaching, and how did that transition work for you? Like, how long did it really take, and what was the practical outcome of the transition?
It took a while. It really did take me a little while. And the only way I did it, and the only way anyone can do it, is you just decide and you jump. But let me tell you something. I was, I think that this happens with a lot of lawyers. So both of my parents are lawyers. So it was definitely, not that they forced me into it at all. It was definitely something I chose on my own. But, it was more than just the practice of law that drew me. It was partly, something that my parents had done. It was partly about the security that I saw in the field and, all of these different things. And I had really become pretty disconnected from what I most desired. So even when I made the transition, I made a transition into what I would call a shadow career. Meaning I didn't ultimately do what I wanted. My passion has always been relationships and love. And, anyone who knows me would have said that. Like, of course, Crystal's becoming a love coach. Like, that makes perfect sense. But that is not what I did. I transitioned initially into career coaching.
Interesting.
To me, yeah, that felt more valid.
Yep.
That felt like something that makes more sense. And I really worked mostly with lawyers. I worked with a lot of attorneys who were going through transitions. It was something that I was really good at, just interviewing and resumes and all of those skills and helping people sort of figure out what they should be doing. And so I don't know that everyone has to go as slowly about it as I did, because I really did transition into a shadow career. I knew that I wanted to do love coaching, but I wasn't in the relationship I most desired yet. And so I took sort of an intermediate step where I first became a career coach. And so I did that for a while. And, I didn't become a relationship coach until someone called me out. I went to this retreat in Bali, and all of the women who were there were just like, we don't understand. Like, why are you not a relationship coach? Like, you love relationships. You're so happy in your relationship. And like, it's fun to hear you talk about relationships. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And, it really was, I needed that outside push, I guess, just to get past my fear. I knew what I should have been doing, but I think that fear really holds a lot of people back. And that definitely was getting in the way for me. And sort of hearing other people sort of reflect, like, you're so passionate about relationships and you make finding a relationship sound like fun, that I was just like, yeah, that really is what I should be doing. It's what I really want to be doing. So here I am.
Can I ask briefly about the retreat in Bali? Just because I think that putting yourself in a space to be open to that and like committing to something like a retreat in Bali, I think for so many lawyers, they're still going to like alternative career conferences in like Delaware. You know what I mean? And that's not really going to be the space, I think, for most people where they're going to really be able to connect to what they want without all the societal expectations of what's appropriate for a lawyer.
Totally.
How did you, I guess, was this a group that is this someone you followed? Like, how did you come upon that retreat? And like, was it a big deal for you to commit to it?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny, actually. So there is another coach that I follow. Her name is Amanda Francis. She's sort of a spiritual business coach, and I'd been following her for a while. I had taken one of her courses, and I just liked her energy. I liked her vibe. And it was really interesting because I had told my husband about her. She talks a lot about manifesting, and specifically as it relates to money. And, for anyone who doesn't know, manifesting is really, in a nutshell, it's just sort of like a mindset. It's like making a decision about something that you want. And then it's really about creating the energy within yourself to just bring it in. So honestly, you could almost call it like goal setting, because it's really not so different, but it's more about the mindset behind it. So anyway, I was like explaining this concept to my husband. And, it's funny because it's like I'm very into personal development work, and it's like kind of telling that like I wasn't even talking about manifesting for the first time until we were already married. Like it was one of those things where it's almost just like, this guy's going to think I'm such a nut job if I like tell him like these things that I like think are interesting and learn about. So I'm explaining manifesting to my husband, and I'm telling him about this particular woman who I'd taken courses from before. And then it was literally a few days later, and I saw her post about this retreat that she was doing in Bali. And it was just, when I saw that she posted about this, it was just for a small group of women. I was like, I need to do this. I want to do this. One thing that I love about my current field is that like, there's so much opportunity to just like learn. And I love learning. I love learning. I love growing. I love developing myself. And this was just so different than anything I had done before. And I was just like, I have to do this. I just feel like this will be a really good environment for me to just like stretch myself and learn more and just like step into something different. So yeah, it was a big thing to commit to. I had never gone out of the country for like a retreat with a spiritual business coach, but it felt very much like the right thing to do. And it was very much something I wanted to do. And it was a big chunk of change. It was probably more than I'd spent on any learning really. But when I thought about it, I was just like, how much did I spend on law school?
Oh, I know. Exactly.
Right? So it's like, yeah, it's a chunk of change, but it's not $100,000. And it's like, so yeah, I went and it was amazing. And I was really glad that I went, but it wasn't the decision wasn't hard for me to come to, but I think, telling other people about it, getting my husband on board, that was a little bit challenging. So it's like, I knew I wanted to, but then sometimes when you're trekking out on your own, you're doing something different, people are just like, what? Like, why would you do that? It just seems far out.
Yeah, completely. And that's why I think that alternative career conferences are really important and they are very useful for some people. That's why exactly the reason why I don't think they're the right space is because it's hard enough to convince the people who love you and know you best sometimes that the last thing you need to do is to go to one of those conferences and ask whether you should be going to a retreat with a spiritual leader in Bali, a spiritual business coach. I love the language of manifesting. I mean, we talk about it a lot on the show, and I'm actually running a money book club, and we just finished reading Jen Sincero's You're a Badass Woman.
Oh, amazing.
So I love money. I love empowering women to create the wealth they need in their life. I joke about how I manifested my husband from age 5. My mom literally showed me a picture that I drew of him at 5.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, right?
That is crazy.
It is great. I find it, it's still one of my favorite stories to tell because it's so, like, I didn't even know about it. And she kind of like told me right before the wedding when I was like freaking out about something. And she was like, no, that's exactly what you told me would happen. I was like, what?
That's amazing.
But my mom believes in all this stuff. Like my whole life, she went to like, my mom's like super, my mom's Chinese. So she believes in a lot of the chi and the energy and all that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. Let's chat a little about love and kind of attracting love. I mean,
great.
I know a lot about attracting money, but and I guess I maybe know something about attracting love, but
sounds like it.
Talking about it. In your own story, you describe that you had to overcome your own pattern of beliefs and limiting block or mental blocks about yourself and, what your self-worth, and those were keeping you single. Can you describe what those beliefs were and kind of how you overcame them? Is that
definitely
a lot?
It is a lot. It's a lot, actually, because there was a lot of beliefs that I had. So I basically think of the collection of beliefs that one holds about love and relationships. And for me, it was men because I'm attracted to men. But, that's like your love blueprint is what I call it. So my love blueprint included things like love doesn't last. The type of men that I love will never love me. I will never be able to hold the attention of someone that I really care for. And it came from things that happened in my childhood. When I was 9, my dad had a stroke and it left him paralyzed on his left side. And he never worked again. His personality was very different. So it was basically that I had seen my childhood just changed really quickly. My parents' relationship changed in a really significant way, really quickly. And so it created sort of a fear in me about the way that people show up in the world. And it's like, my dad didn't mean to abandon me. Obviously, this is not the sort of thing where he walked out, but it did create that sense of abandonment. And he died when I was 19. So, it's again, there was a sense of abandonment there. So it's these things can happen. And as kids, we assign meaning to them. And it's like, it's very interesting because like the way it happens, like obviously that was never his intention, but like that is the way that I interpreted it. And that became a part of my story. And then as I entered into my adulthood, so when I'm 19 and 21 and, onwards and dating, that was the pattern that I was creating for myself. So, when I was in college, I fell for this guy and he wasn't available to me. And I don't say he's emotionally unavailable because he's married now and I hope that he's very happy. But he wasn't available to me. I was not someone that he wanted to turn his attention to. And I fell in love with him. And we had this sort of relationship for over a year where I really felt very strongly about him and he never felt the same way about me. And so that just sort of built on that story that I'd already created. And he broke up with me very unceremoniously on a Saturday night at a party, and so it's like that sort of added on to my story as well. And it just continued like that. And so my beliefs, it's not just like men are jerks. It was deeper than that. It sort of included that in a way, but it's like that's a part of what it was. And I recreated that story definitely through my early 20s. And then by the time I was in my mid 20s, I sort of started having a little bit more awareness. But, these patterns that we have and the beliefs that we create about like what we deserve, about what we can have, about what's available to us, that's what I work with my clients on. It's deep work. It doesn't have to take a long time. I'm not saying that it takes years and years to unravel it, but I don't know that I could like appropriately cover it for a podcast interview. But what I see with a lot of people is that you can get to the deeper beliefs by starting with those more basic things. So things like, men are jerks, or men dating online only want to hook up. All these things, all these little stories that we tell ourselves that just are not getting us what we want. What I've seen is that right now, 2019, 2018, this particular climate that we have, women are, very anti-men. And, I think part of it is this recognition of toxic masculinity and like wanting to take down the patriarchy, but it's become a little bit of a broad stroked thing where it's like a lot of women are then projecting that just towards men in general and feeling like as if men aren't on our side, as if they want something totally different. And when you're in that place, it's very hard to create a loving relationship with a man when you're thinking that men are jerks. Men aren't supportive. I could never have my career and a great man. So that's sort of like
ooh, that is a lot.
Right.
So do you find that so this is obviously, as you said, hasn't have to take a long time, but it is very meaningful work. Do you think that women struggle more with really being honest about what their beliefs are, or do you think the struggle is really with letting go of those beliefs? Do you think most people would know their beliefs and just don't want to let go of them? Or do you think a lot of people are pretty clueless to what is actually holding them back?
That's a really interesting question. I really think it's both.
Yeah.
Because women can become aware that they have the belief and then they're just like, well,
it's true. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But it's true. So it was really interesting for me because the year that I called in my husband, I call it the year of the man because I really wanted love. Like I felt like I was in a good place with my career and I was just like, I'm ready for love. I'm ready for a real partnership. And all the common denominator with all my exes is me. So like, what can I do differently? And it was really interesting because as I became a little bit aware of what my beliefs were and decided to start changing them, it became really clear that like they went so much deeper and that they were really prevalent. Because I would recognize that when I was with other women, my girlfriends, it was really hard for me to start cementing in my new beliefs. My new beliefs were things like men want me to be happy. Men want to make my life easier and take care of me. Every man that I go out with thinks that I'm charming and delightful. Like, that there are good men everywhere. All of these new beliefs that I was really wanting to cement in, I got so much pushback from other women. So it's like I could go out to brunch with girlfriends and try to say like, oh, I'm having a really great time dating. I'm meeting all these amazing men. And they're just like, oh, every guy I meet is such a jerk. Like they're such assholes. They're always just disappearing on you. And just like so much pushback. So it's definitely both and unfortunately, I think that sometimes our friends aren't helping us.
Yeah, no, as we were talking about before we started recording, I'm not somebody who can speak too broadly about what it's like to date today, just because I've been with Dave for 13 years now. But I do get a sense that there is a defense mechanism up and that there is this energy around dating that doesn't feel always the most productive, but that's
Mhm.
as an outsider looking in. I know there are lots of people out there who are genuinely putting themselves out there and open and welcoming and still struggling to find their match. Do you think that you can really find love online?
Of course. Oh my God, absolutely. Of course. Here's the thing with dating online, dating apps, people love to complain about them. Oh
Yep.
my God, with online dating, everyone just feels like they have unlimited options and like all of this stuff. And I'm just like, those are all stories. And I don't think any of that is true. I think if that's what you believe, then that is what you'll experience. And I don't think that's true. I met my husband on an app and I had great experiences with online dating because that's really what I expected to find. I expected to have great experiences because the thing is the people that are online are the same humans that are out in the world. So I think that we got to take all of the stories away from online dating. It's just a channel. And I think when you can think of it like that, it's just another channel where it's like a different channel might be a setup from a friend. Another channel might be your church or your synagogue or, wherever you go for religious worship. A channel could be workout classes. These are all channels of meeting people. And I just don't believe in being closed off to any particular channel because you don't know in which channel the most amazing prospects for you are. So this idea that like online dating is beneath anyone or that it is, that people online only want one thing, it's just a story. I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second.
I love that. And I completely agree. And I think being open to the unexpected is often, I know people always say that. It's like when you're not looking is when you find, but I don't even think that that's 100% true. I think sometimes it's okay to be looking and be open to maybe not finding them then. I always say that if I hadn't, I literally moved to an island in the middle of nowhere to quote unquote find myself after college and found my husband. I was looking to build relationship, but I wasn't looking for love. I was just kind of in a really hurt and broken place. And I just was trying to get away and just be on my own. I was a serial monogamist. I think I was in a relationship since not real ones, but since 5th grade, I was always coupled. And that's a long time. I had been doing that for 12 years or whatever. And so honestly, and we still joke that if we hadn't spent a year alone on an island in the middle of nowhere, there's no way we would have gotten together. It took me a year to realize the value there because we were so different. But if I hadn't been open to that possibility, and if I hadn't been open to that friendship in the first instance, it would never have happened.
Totally. I think what you said is right. It's really about openness. If you're open, the more open you can be, the better. And, I was very much looking for love when I met my husband. And I actually I found it very frustrating when people would say oh, you'll find him when you're not looking for him. And I don't believe that. I don't think that's true. I think what people are really getting at is that you want to have a level of detachment.
Yes.
When we're in a place where it's I have to meet him. If I don't meet him this year, I don't know what I'll do. And it becomes this very intense, contracted energy that's really not sexy. It's not attractive when you are being needy and graspy.
You don't want to be thirsty and put that energy out.
Exactly.
It's an energy of lack.
Yeah, no one likes that. No one enjoys that. So it's you can definitely be intentional and know that you want to call in love and still be in a place where it's I'm not stressed about it. I don't need it to happen right now, but I believe it is going to happen for me soon because I'm ready for it and I'm excited about it.
So I could talk about this forever, but I want to jump really quickly because I'd love to know kind of when you work with your clients or, the people who go into your programs, what results are people getting? Because I always find this so interesting. What can a coach really deliver in this space?
Yeah, they're calling in love. I mean, the result that they get is that they meet someone who's a really great match. So, and this is what happens with my clients, regardless of like where they are when they come to me. So, I have clients who come to me because they're just getting out of a really hard relationship. Like they've just gone through a breakup and they're really devastated by that. And so, I had one client in particular, and it was funny because when she came to me, she was just like, I'm not going to, like, she was really hung up on the fact that, like, her ex was very charming. And she was just like, I know he's going to meet someone before me, and I know I shouldn't care, but like, it's just frustrating because I know he's going to meet someone and I'm going to be alone for a long time. And I was just like, no, that's not the case. Like, when you can let him go, you can meet someone else. And so that's what we did. We really worked on like releasing him fully. And sure enough, she met an amazing guy, and he's so, so different. So, one of the things that I like to help my clients with, it's not just like, oh, I have a boyfriend now. It's like, what do you really want? Like, what do you really want to call in, and like, what kind of person? Because like this client that I'm referring to, she was dating this guy who really wasn't treating her very well. But she felt like she loved him. And so she was sort of willing to put up with a lot of things that didn't feel good, that didn't really make her happy. And so her boyfriend now, he treats her amazingly. Like he is just really devoted and committed to her, and they're fully on the same page. And so it's not just about like having a new relationship. It's about like someone you can build with, someone you can really create a life with, who you're really aligned with, like aligned values, aligned goals, aligned interests, like someone who really wants to be in it with you. Again, it doesn't have to take a long time, and you don't have to go from like dating jerks or dating guys that are kind of unavailable to like dating someone who's like a little bit better, and then someone who's a little bit better, and then like 3 years later you're dating someone where you're like, oh, I could marry this guy. No, like you can go from wherever you are right now to engage to someone amazing in less than a year. But like, obviously that's going to be a big jump. And so those are the sorts of women that I really love to work with when they're just like, yeah, I'm ready for a serious committed relationship. And I don't exactly know how I'm going to get there because these guys that I'm dealing with right now, that's just not where we are. So it's like when you're ready to take that sort of quantum leap and just go from where you are to like really, really happily coupled up.
Girl, I like want to work with you, and I'm like the happiest married person ever.
I know, people say that all the time.
I want to take a quantum leap.
I know. I have married women that are in my Facebook group and that follow me, and they're just like, I just love listening to you talk about relationships. And I have people who are like, I'm really happily married, but I apply everything you say to money, and like, yeah.
No, I love the energy around it, and it so resonates with me because I'm so blessed. So when I hear your words, I feel it reminds me of how lucky I am. Do you know
totally.
what I mean? I have that type of partner in my life. And I don't, to be honest, have that much conversation around relationships in my life.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes I don't think about it as deeply, and I'm not as grateful as I should be to have an amazing partner. I feel like I'm going to cry. So for all of those single, high-achieving women, and I wonder, does this also work for men attracting men and women attracting women? I assume it's the same energy, but I don't.
It is a similar energy in a lot of ways. And I do have men in my audience, and I have men that read my emails and everything. I focus on working with women because just because of the differences between masculine and feminine energy. I don't know if we have, And so I think of the woman as really the magnet. So, the women do choose the person they're going to be with, but you do it energetically by calling in the person that you want. So that's why I really keep my focus on women.
I love that clarity. So for the single high achieving woman that you work with, and those out in my audience who are really struggling to attract that love in their life, do you have like one or two like really actionable tips of things they could start doing today to really clear their energy and start attracting the love that they are looking for?
Yeah. So I'll just give one because it's kind of a big one. I would say look at the places where you need to do some forgiving and releasing. And here's one of the things that I notice with a lot of single women is that it's very easy to hold on to people who are sort of like almosts. Like where they'll have these guy friends that they know sort of have feelings for them, but they would never really want to be in a relationship with, but like they keep them in their back pocket. And like we hold on to these things. And, it's partly to avoid being fully alone. And it's, to me, that shows a lack of faith that you're actually going to get what you want. And so I think that it's a really powerful one when you can just fully release and forgive any past relationships, but also anyone who's in your present that you just sort of have on the periphery. This was really a big clearing exercise for me. I mean, and I also recommend a lot of clearing. Like if you haven't been watching Marie Kondo on Netflix, then like do that, do some decluttering, but also just the decluttering of the people who aren't quite there. And this is a really big step, and it's a really challenging one. The one that I find that a lot of people have a lot of resistance around. But when you can clear that energy field where you're just like, there's no man in my energy except for like the one that I'm calling in, the amazing man that I am ready for. It's just a big sign that you're sort of giving yourself and just giving the universe, where it's just like, look, I'm all ready. I'm ready for that perfect man, because like I don't have all of these guys just sort of like floating around. So I think it's a really big one. And then it's like that you'll have, nature abhors a vacuum. So it's just creating space for what you really want to create.
I love that. I talk about this a lot with the money mindset stuff, also with clearing money blocks. And I was trying to think if this framework would work for relationships, because the framework I always use is kind of that, I know, I forgive you, thank you, I love you. So like,
oh, of course, Ho'oponopono.
Yes.
Oh yeah, totally. I teach that to my clients also.
Fantastic. So my audience is very familiar. So you guys get out there and start clearing your energy so you can attract some great love into your life.
Totally. I love that. Yes.
Let's transition to segment 2 of the show, which I call the happiness hot sheet. And these are just some quick fire questions, which are always the things that I want to know about all my guests, but I never remember to ask. So I've just put them all at the end of the show so that I can get these answers for my own benefit and for the benefit of my audience. So, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Number 1, how do you go about making difficult or scary decisions?
I trust my intuition, always. I follow my intuition. And your intuition is always there. Sometimes people are like, oh, I have to get really quiet. I need to go out in the woods and meditate. No, your intuition will answer you in a second, but you have to practice using it so that you can hear it more loudly. But I always just follow my intuition.
Do you have tips what that means to practice using it for people who aren't familiar?
When you get an intuitive hit, you follow it. That's a good way of practicing it, because then it gets strengthened. So sometimes that looks like someone invites you to something and you're like, I don't really want to go, but like something is pulling me towards it. And it's not a should. It's not like, oh, I should go because it's going to move me ahead in my career. It's just like your intuition is like giving you a little nudge to go. Or it could be, I'm going to ignore Waze and drive this other way. I'm not saying ignore Waze. Waze rarely has let me down, but but you know what I mean? Where it's just like, oh, I'm going to drive this other way.
Yep.
Or I'm going to go out with this person that like I don't really want to go out with, but my intuition is nudging me towards. So, and I think that's the thing that people sometimes think that like our intuition or alignment always feels good. Not always. Sometimes it feels really scary, or it feels like I don't want to do that. But it's just like, you got to start like tuning in a little bit. Like, what am I being sort of led or pushed towards?
Oh, love that. So how do you prioritize your own happiness?
That's an interesting question. I just do. I just really do. I don't know how I wouldn't. It's hard for me to answer that question. I don't know how I would not prioritize my own happiness.
I love that. I think that, there's this story that women don't know how. Do you know what I mean? And I'm the same way. I'm someone who like, it's not hard for me to prioritize my own happiness, even as a mother, as a wife. Like, I think that, and no one had to teach it to me. I didn't have to learn it. I don't need any inspirational quotes to like know that that's what I should be doing. So I love that answer.
Yeah. Okay, good.
3, and I think you talked a little bit about this, but if you could just describe a mindset shift that really changed your life.
Oh, I have one. Oh my God, I have one. This is going to be really, I think it's going to piss off your listeners, actually.
Go for it.
The things that women use to judge men do not matter to men. So here's what I hear from a lot of women. They'll be like, I don't understand. I'm so amazing and I have all of these amazing friends and they're so accomplished. Like, look what they've done in their careers and look how much money they make. And she has her own apartment and she has her own car. And like, it just doesn't make sense that men aren't like going crazy over her. Oh, this pissed me off when I got this because none of that stuff matters to men. None of those things are going to set you apart. For you to be accomplished and, earning a great living and having a great career and having a nice car and having a nice apartment and having friends, that makes you a pretty average woman. The thing that will set you apart when it comes to men is your sense of yourself, your sense of loving yourself, and the way that you own your personality and the things that actually set you apart. None of your accomplishments are going to be particularly interesting to a man. And I don't mean like he's not going to be interested in your accomplishments. I mean that men will look at a woman with ambition and you might look at yourself as being way above a particular woman. So for example, I sometimes work with women who are like CEOs or they're millionaires or they make, several $100,000 a year. And they're just like, they really look at themselves and they can see their accomplishments. But to a man, you are still on the same level as any woman who has sort of a vision for herself. So, for example, there could be a woman who is a waitress and she's putting herself through cosmetology school and her ideal is to own her own salon. And you might look at yourself and think that you're somehow above this woman, that you are somehow more impressive. But as far as a man is concerned, she also has ambition and a vision. And it doesn't really matter that she could be making $30,000 a year and you're making $300,000 a year.
And so interesting.
The way that you own your personality is the way that you're actually going to set yourself apart. So when you're just like, I am amazing because of like the things that I'm passionate about and the way that I show up in the world, those are the things that actually make you stand out. The things about your personality, none of your like outside accomplishments, your personality. And then, just if he's attracted, basically.
So if you guys have anything to say to Crystal about that, you can find her at crystalirom.com. No, I think that that's really important to say. And I wish we had more time to dive into it because my first thought is I wonder if it's because those are things that women look for in men.
Totally.
And some of us are not self-aware enough to realize, obviously, despite everything we want to believe, men and women aren't the same. And we are not attracted to the same things. And we need different things from our partners. And so because we would want a man who has a good set of friends, who's accomplished and who has his shit together, for lack of a better term, they are looking for something different.
Right.
Interesting. Okay. Number 4, can you name a book that has really inspired you on your journey?
Oh, yes, of course. I have, oh my gosh, so many books. I would say The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
Yep. I'm surprised you went with that one, but it's a great book.
Wait, why?
It's so much more businessy than I expected. I was expecting something more spiritual, but I think it's a good combination between the two. Like it brings the mindset and the psychology piece into business, which is so important.
Totally. Well, a little bit of a more spiritually one that I actually really, really love is called A Happy Pocket Full of Money.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's so good.
There's a lot of words in there I like.
A Happy Pocket Full of Money. I can't remember the name of the author, but I actually find that it's really powerful for mindset and manifesting. Obviously it's about money specifically, but I think that it really applies very well for love also. I'm just going to name one more because I want to, which is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind has been another really big one for me.
Amazing. So we may have to add that money one to the Money Book Club because I think I may add it to the list.
And it's really good. It's really, really good.
I love money books. So
yeah.
Great. We will list all 3 of those books on the website so people can find them. Awesome. Number 5, last one is, what do you think separates happy lawyers from those lawyers who struggle to find happiness in life with a law degree?
That's a really interesting question. I think that happy lawyers, it's like happy people. I think that happy lawyers are the ones who are like actually doing the thing in the world that they want to be doing. So I'm a happy lawyer. I'm not practicing law, but I'm definitely a very happy lawyer. But I have friends that are still practicing, and they're all doing the work that they actually want to do. And I don't think for any of them, it's the job that they had right out of law school, because it's like it took them some time to figure out what they actually wanted. But I really do think that when you're in a situation, you got to make the absolute best of whatever situation you're in. But that never means that you have to stay on a particular path because that's the path that you started on.
Oh, so good. Okay, the last segment of the show. Before we wrap up, I always ask my audience on Instagram to send me some questions, and I pick kind of my favorite question for my guest. And so I got a question from Chelsea on Instagram, and she wants to know how to go about, and this, in her experience, she finds that men are intimidated by her being a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you go about, and when is the right time to introduce that information?
Okay, so this is really interesting. I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
Say that.
Yeah, because if a man is really interested, like I said, your external things, your job, how much money you make, that's not going to be the thing that stops him. My guess is that, so there's a couple of options. One could be that men are using that just something to say to her. It's a sort of nice way of putting someone off. It's very complimentary when you can say, I'm intimidated by you, or I think that you're too good for me, or something like that. But it's not really true. Men will go so far out of their league if they really, and they can think this woman is way out of my league, but I really, really like her. It's not going to matter. So that's the first thing to really be aware of. To just let go of this idea that a man will be stopped because of intimidation. Men,
yeah, that hasn't been my experience with men.
Yeah, they will go after what they really want. So I think let go of that story. The way that it could actually show up is if you're bringing your work personality into your dates and you're coming across as maybe kind of aggressive, or you're really putting your accomplishments or your work sort of front and center. So it's there's a couple of ways you can deal with that. One is you sort of look at how can I tone that down? Am I sort of approaching my dates like interviews where I'm putting a guy on the spot, badgering him with questions? Yeah, it's not just that that's intimidating, it's just that it's unpleasant. So it's are you showing up as a lawyer on your dates? There was an episode of Sex and the City where Miranda was talking about this, and she was a lawyer, very, very talented, smart lawyer. And so she went on these speed dating. And so she did a test where she started saying that she was a flight attendant, not a lawyer. And then she got a date when she was pretending to be a flight attendant. But really, everything changed. When she said she was a flight attendant, she was really sweet about it. She's like, oh, I'm a flight attendant. And she came across as very sweet and a little bit coy, and she was flirting. Whereas when she was a lawyer, she's like, I'm a lawyer. I work for one of the top firms. It's a very different thing. So it's how are you actually being? What is your energy like? People sure made comments to me oh, you're too sweet to be a lawyer, things like that. But I think that there's something else really there for you to sort of look at and see, is it just that I may be attracted to the kind of guys that I don't want to be with? There's plenty of guys that are going to love a woman who's a lawyer, and they're going to prefer a woman that comes across as sort of an aggressive, really strong, powerful lawyer. So that's one thing, is maybe you're just going after the wrong type of guys, or maybe you're approaching things in a way where it's you can make a little bit of a shift in how you talk about the work that you do and how you're presenting yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much for that answer. And before I let you go, what's the best way for people to follow you and learn more about your services?
Absolutely. So my name is Crystal Irom. It's like iron, but with an M at the end. And so that's my website, crystalirom.com. That's my Instagram. You can find me. You can find me on Facebook. I have a private Facebook group called Magnetizing Love. It's just for, high achieving single women. That's where I put out a lot of my content. So any of those places you can find me, I will be just talking about love.
I love that. Yep. So we will leave links to all of those things, all of the places at thehappylawyerproject.com. So if you guys are on a run or on your commute, you don't need to worry about getting out a pen. We will have that for you. Thank you so much, Crystal, for being on the show today. It was such a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Thanks so much for listening. And if you got value out of this episode and you think there's someone else who might enjoy it, I'd love for you guys to share. And if you have any questions for me, please head over to the website at thehappylawyerproject.com and you can leave me a voicemail right on the website. When you get there, you'll see a little tab on the right hand of the screen. and you can click on it and leave a voicemail there. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. Last but not least, if you enjoy this podcast and you like the content that I'm bringing to you guys and you haven't done so already, I would really encourage you guys to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a rating and review. That's all for this week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening.